Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for this video, I'm doing Q&A part 2. I have done a Q&A part 1 a couple months ago and you guys really enjoyed it. So I thought I'd do another one. If you haven't watched my first one though, go check it out. I'll leave a link down below to that video. So for this one, I'm going to be answering about 5 questions that you guys asked and I thought were really important and kind of interesting to answer and talk about. So if you're interested, then please keep on watching. So I wrote down all the questions that you guys asked me in here, and I'm going to be answering them. So the first question I have is, what is the toughest surgery that you've had so far? So I've had about 21, 22 surgeries. I've mentioned it before, and they were all tough, obviously, but I can think of 2 at the top of my head, but I would have to say number 1, toughest one, would have to be the spinal surgery. I had this one in 7th grade. Years ago, and it was really hard surgery, not because, well, it was just really painful. It was the last major surgery that I've had. The last surgery I've had was my tonsils and adenoids being removed. So that one was actually tough because I did have complications with that surgery, so I actually had to go to the emergency room and get an emergency surgery done, so that was also tough. But I think pain wise and just overall, the toughest one was my last spinal surgery with a tethered cord. And so it was really hard because I had complications with that surgery as well. I was healing up perfectly fine, and one day when I was home, I noticed that my back was leaking, and it was leaking my spinal fluid. So for those of you that don't know, there is a spinal fluid that circulates, and if you have a surgery, that's what you want to keep an eye out for, because it can be really dangerous if you lose that spinal fluid. And I remember that day like it's clear as day, and I remember like it was yesterday, and the feeling, like the pain of my back was really, really hard. It was really painful. You know, I couldn't get comfortable sleeping. It was hard sitting up, and it was really painful when people would have to clean out the scar. It was just really, really bad. But I think that's one of the toughest ones I've had, because I vividly remember I had a complication with that as well, like I was saying, and I had to go to the emergency room, and they had to go back in and sew up my back because it was leaking spinal fluid, and it's very dangerous, and it can lead to, you know, bacteria. It can lead to death. So I did have to go through another surgery after that, was set back my recovery time. So it was really hard to go through that whole process again of trying to heal. So I think that one was the toughest one. I think most of it is because it's very vivid, because it was the latest big surgery I had, but also just like I can remember the pain like it was yesterday, and I remember it being very, very painful. And still to this day, my back is super, super sensitive. I don't like anybody touching my back. If I just bump it against something, it like gets so painful, and like right now I feel like I'm cringing, because honestly the pain is just kind of like, I can't even like describe. Like sometimes I'll bump my back against something and like I get teary-eyed because it's very, very sensitive. It's a very sensitive area. So yeah, I think that one was probably the toughest surgery that I've had. The next question is, what has been your license experience and when did you get your license? So I got my license 2 years ago. I started driving, I think it was 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. I just graduated high school, and I had my evaluation done, which basically, if you're going to drive with hand controls, you have to get someone to give you an evaluation to make sure that you're ready to drive. And then again, this is the process for Rhode Island. Every state is different, has a different process, but I'm just explaining the process in Rhode Island. So in here, you have to have an evaluation done, and then you go to the DMV. And I thought I would just be able to walk in and take the permit test. So I had the evaluation, and they said, you know, you're perfect to drive. We drove around the neighborhood with hand controls, and they're like, you'll be fine. Like, you just have to go get your permit so we can start the lessons. So I studied up, I read the book, and I was ready to take my permit test, and I had my mom take me there. And when I get there and I make the line, the guy says, well, you need to be using hand controls, and I say yes. But keep in mind that this is a written test, and I thought that I would be able to just walk in, take the written test, and it was going to be fine. But he said, you know, you have to go downstairs and make this other line because we need to put in the system that you're going to be using hand controls. And so I thought I would just have to get like someone to write a letter, write a note, like, hey, she's going to be using hand controls. But it was actually a lot more than that. We went back downstairs and we made another line, and we were there for like 2 hours. And after we get there, we meet up with someone who was basically asking like all these questions that I thought were really unnecessary, because I knew that they wouldn't be asking someone else. And she was like, you know, why do you even want your license? Like, what are you gonna do with it? And to me, it was just like odd, because like, what do you mean, what do I want my license for? Like, I was, what, 19 years old at that time, or 18? I said, you know, I wanted just the same reason, to be independent, take myself to school. And she said, well, what else are you gonna do with it? You're gonna go to school, and what else? And I said, well, anywhere I want to take myself. I'm just like any other person. Like, I want to be independent. And, you know, she was saying comments like, well, how do I know you're not going to be a danger to society? Like, how do I know you're good at driving? And I said, well, I had my evaluation done. I have a printed copy of it. Here it is. And it explains what kind of hand controls I need. And she was just being super rude about it. And I remember leaving like crying, because I felt very like discriminated against. And like the way she was just talking to me, like, I don't know, I just find it so rude and offensive. And so basically what happened afterwards is that they needed to have a meeting, and I needed to provide records, my medical records. I needed to get a letter from my doctor and give them all the lab results that I've had, so then they could have a meeting and decide whether I could even take the permit or not. Again, I'm not sure how it works in every state, but this is how it works in Rhode Island. And so, yeah, we had to have a meeting. I had to wait months and months for them to mail me back a card with it saying, yes, you can take your permit, or no, you cannot take your permit. And so they mailed me back a card that said, yes, you can take your permit test, and that was months later. And I was like, finally, I get to take my permit test. So I went back, I took my permit test. The first time I passed it, I did really well, so I was super happy. And then I started scheduling my lessons. So after you pass your permit test, you have to schedule lessons with an instructor that is certified with hand controls. So I can't learn to drive with my parents or anybody else like that. It has to be with an instructor that's certified with hand controls. So then I started doing that, and that took about a year. You have to do at least 30 hours here to be able to get the full gist of driving with hand controls. So again, you have to work around her schedule, work around my schedule to see when the lessons would fit. Each lesson would be about an hour. Sometimes it'd be 2 hours if we wanted to, but most of the time it was 1 hour. And then after she felt like I was ready and I felt like I was ready, then we had to schedule the exam, the road test exam, where she would bring in her car that already had the hand controls adapted, and then I could get my license. So I did the road test. I ended up passing the first time as well, which is super exciting. And then I could finally get my hand controls afterwards, because here you cannot get your car installed with hand controls before you have your license. So I couldn't drive with my parents or anything until I got my license. So when I got my license, then my parents surprised me with a car. Actually, I had no idea, and then we got it installed with hand controls. So it was a long process. I'd say about like 3 years, honestly. So it was really, really frustrating, but it made it so much worth it at the end. And now I'm completely independent, and I can take myself to school and anything I want, and I'm just a perfectly independent person now, which is really, really exciting. And yeah, so if you're learning how to drive, hang in there. I had a lot of driving anxiety at first, and I still kind of do sometimes, to be honest, because I get really nervous while I'm driving. But it gets better over time, and you will pull through. I know you will. And just, you know, have positive thoughts, positive energy, and I'm sure everything will be just fine. If you're learning how to drive with hand controls, I know it's very like new to you, and you know, you feel like you have to be on top of everything. You have to turn signal, you have your hand controls, your brake, your gas, and then you have to keep one hand on a steering wheel, and then it's just a lot of things going on. But I promise you will get used to it, and it'll just become like second nature to you. So don't worry about that. What is an embarrassing story that has happened to you recently? Well, I can think of one. It actually happened to me like literally 3 days ago. But the first time it happened to me was when I was in school, and it was last year, I believe. I was on my way to class, and I guess my wheelchair was going a little fast, and I hit a bump in the school, and my wheelchair completely flipped over. I fell face forward on the sidewalk, and there was like people walking by, and it was super embarrassing. And I was like, oh my god, like my purse flew one way, my phone was like another way, like my wheelchair was just flipped, and I was like laughing because I was like, what is happening? I've never had that happen before. Thankfully, someone behind me stopped and they asked like, oh my god, are you okay? And they helped me get back up because I couldn't even get myself back up because internally I was like dying and I was laughing and I was like super embarrassed, and I like rolled out of there so fast. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. But then now I just laugh about it all the time because who else would it happen to? Like, of course it happens to me. Like, who else would it happen to? And then actually 2 days ago, the same thing happened to me. It was a different spot. I was going up a ramp. There was no one behind me this time, which is a little better because it wasn't super embarrassing like last time. But I was going up the ramp and I don't know what happened, but the same thing happened. My front wheels got caught in the sidewalk and my whole wheelchair flipped over and I fell again, and I had a folder in my lap and the folder and papers flew everywhere, but I got myself back up and kept on rolling. But yeah, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that this happened to me again, because it literally happened to me twice now. So I don't know, I'm sure there'll be a next time, but who knows. So yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. But my mom was like, you know what, who cares, like people walk and fall down all the time. And I was like, that's true. So I mean, I didn't really take it to heart and now I laugh about it, but at the moment I was like traumatized. I was like, oh my god. So yeah. What advice can you give to other women that are living with disabilities? I like this question because I like giving advice and I like talking about, you know, women with disabilities. And something that I would say to a woman who has a disability, I guess, would be to just be yourself and accept yourself. And I think that when you accept who you are, that's when you truly become unstoppable, and that's when you truly become great and amazing, and you can do whatever you want and you can do whatever you're capable of, and you have all this potential that you can do. And I think that's what it is. I think we need to be confident. Even though we have a disability doesn't mean anything. I think you can still be confident, you can still feel beautiful, you can still put yourself out there and do everything you want to do. And I say go for it. If you want to do something, then go and try it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And I would just say that, you know, it doesn't matter what society thinks that a woman should look like and what society thinks is beautiful, and all of that doesn't matter. I think that if you surround yourself with good people that support you and love you and care about you, I think that's what's important. And as long as you love yourself, I think that's what's important. And I think the moment that you accept who you are and every single little flaw that you have, I think that's when it'll finally click. And I think that's when you will be happy with yourself. And that's when you will love yourself and you can realize that you can do anything you want in the world. So I think acceptance is like the #1 key. And the day you accept yourself is like the day that, wow, I can really do anything and I love myself for that. So I think that's something that I would say to other women with disabilities. And if you have any other advice for women with disabilities, leave a comment down below and I'm really interested to check that out. The last question I have is, what motivates me to achieve my goals? Something that motivates me to achieve my goals is that sometimes it's hard, and yes, sometimes it's super frustrating. Sometimes I'm just like, why is this so hard? Why is it so frustrating? It's not hard for anybody else, just for me. And you know what? That's what makes everything so worth it at the end. So what motivates me is to know that I have a goal and that I can achieve it. And yes, it's going to be hard to get there, but at the end of the day, it'll be so much more worth it because I know that I worked really, really, really hard for it. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, these are questions that you guys asked that I wanted to answer for you guys. I want to make every single video just for you guys, and I want you guys to feel like you're a part of this. So if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment down below. I'm always interested in seeing what kind of upcoming videos you guys want to see, and I want to keep making them for you guys. I want to keep making videos that you guys are interested in watching, so I'm not just making like random videos. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this second Q&A. Maybe I'll do a third one in the future. If you guys keep asking questions, I would love to do that. But other than that, thank you so much for watching my video and subscribing to my channel. I can't believe I have like 900 subscribers at this point. It's literally mind-blowing. Thank you all who take the time out of your day to watch my videos, who take the time to like them, to comment them, to write, you know, good feedbacks in my social media or anything like that, who reach out to me. I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot. But please like this video, please comment, please subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye.